Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the first episode of Writers Uncensored for the new year. We are back. Had to take a little break due to holiday shenanigans and Kendra catching the plague.
Yeah, I caught the plague for a little while. I'm sorry, guys.
But we're back. I'm Brian Tan, and with me as always is my sister from another mother, Kendra Souder.
Hello.
Kendra, how was your holiday and your New Year's ringing in festivities?
Pretty uneventful, fortunately enough. It was really quiet. No family drama, which was great.
Nice. Yeah, same here, ironically enough. There was no familial drama. Nobody annoyed me. I didn't go to jail. So
That's always
cool.
a plus.
Yeah, but I did ring in the new year with a migraine, though. That wasn't cool.
Well, mine decided to kick in a week later, so there's that.
So you were having sympathy pains?
I may have.
You're the awesomest sister to ever sister.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's just jump right on in. We had to take about 2 weeks off, guys. Sorry for the impromptu-ness, but you guys were probably enjoying your holidayisms as well, so you can't really fault us.
No.
So we kind of wanted to bring in the new year with an episode that Kendra and I have been talking about since we first started doing Writers Uncensored. And you guys know by now that as we talk about these different topics, some of these harder hitting topics in fiction, we like to have open discussion and open dialogue. But the one thing that Kendra and I agree that we really want to discuss, and it's essentially how autism is treated in media and in forms of fiction, such as in the written word and in television and in film. And we really feel like it's really important to talk about, especially where now here we are in 2020 and people are being a lot more aware of not just mental health but other disorders as well. I don't want to say mental disorders, but where either way, the whole point is we are we try to be a lot more aware of these things, but sometimes even in attempting to have awareness, we can get it wrong. And Kendra, I'm sure you know exactly what I mean. You're not that much younger than me, but you can remember, I'm sure, kids in school being picked on and teased because they weren't like everybody else.
Oh, yeah, because I was like number one being picked on in high school for the same thing. So
yeah,
I have firsthand experience. Yeah.
I mean, I was picked on because I was the fat kid, but no one really gave me a hard time for anything else. But I mean, yeah, I was dealing with some, emotional issues as well at that point in time. But we also all saw the kids in school that were just, well, back when I was a kid, women in my family or men in my family would say the kid was off, and we even have right now a young lady that's really been in the news over the last few months, Greta Thunberg, who's who's on the spectrum. And it really kind of sickens me that a lot of people have been sort of attacking her based on being on the spectrum. Right. Because they don't agree with what she's saying. But
and you can deny climate change all you want, but I'm sorry, it's happening. And she's a very intelligent girl. She may not be one of the scientists that she's telling us to look up to, but at the same time, what will we lose from listening to her? She's very smart, and it shouldn't matter if she's on the spectrum.
Right, because hell, half the time folks that are on the spectrum are smarter than folks that consider themselves normal or smart. I mean, but we're actually going to do something for the first time on the show where we're actually going to have a guest. And Kendra, do you want to announce our guest since you found our guest?
Sure. Well, I've known him for a very, very, very long time. I would like to introduce my dad onto the show. Dad, say hello.
Hello, folks.
So He is also an author, but also knows quite a bit about autism. So we decided to bring him on today so we can discuss autism and all that stuff with him today.
You want to tell everyone your dad's name, or should we just call him Dad?
Most people just call me the old. That's okay.
Oh,
we used to call him Big Cat Daddy when I was a kid, but I don't know if we do that anymore.
No.
Well, Frank, we're happy to have you. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us for this topic.
Absolutely.
All right, so I guess before we get started, what's your background? Where does your expertise come from?
Well, my expertise comes from the fact that I have a 24-year-old special. Kendra's sister, her name is Sage, and she is a 24-year-old autistic who lives here with me. And Kendra's mother, her actual mother, not the other one, as well as her brother. So I've had a lot of years of experience with actually having in my home. I also happen to be a coach and volunteer here for some of the local sports setups that we have out here in California, for specifically designed to get some of the specials. Those are on the spectrum, or not just autism, but have other challenges as well. So I've gotten an opportunity to get to meet a lot of people, not just the specials, but parents, grandparents, and those people who deal with it every day.
That's amazing. Well, first of all, thank you so much for what you're doing, because that's very important, and I'm sure you've seen it a lot. People, they come in with good intentions, but they don't actually know what to do or how to get it done. They come in with their idea of what they need to get done, and they think that everyone needs to sort of bend to what they have an idea of, where they don't realize it's the other way around.
When you have a special in your life or in your house, you're good, bad, or indifferent. It all depends upon somebody's individual perspective. But your life revolves around that. Some days it's good. Actually, you don't really have good days. You have level of bad. And everybody goes, oh my goodness. Well, and it's just the reality of having a special. You have levels of bad days. Some days that level is really, really low, and maybe you're just dealing with a lot of questions or something that may come off to somebody else who's not used to that as odd. Or you can have a really, really bad day where things are escalating. And, we've had the unfortunate events of having to have Sage taken to a facility for her own good. 5 times, I think it is now. I'd have to ask Sage, because she's got a little calendar in her head. It's one of her gifts from her autism. Is that she's got a wicked memory for dates and times. But that's just kind of what you roll with when you have a special you live with.
And she really does too, because I love getting the messages like the closer we get to her birthday, where she counts down the days, the minutes, and the seconds.
Right.
It's wonderful. I love that.
I wish, I tell you, I wish my mind worked like that, because I forget practically everything.
We'll ask Sage. Sage, do you remember when that? And she'll drop a date right on you. Oh yeah, October such and such. And Sage was born in 1995, but she'll drop dates on you like October 1998, and you're thinking you're 3 years old. Yeah, but I remember it.
But she remembers so well.
See, I can only do that with movies.
Right.
Movies or television shows. I can't do that with anything else. Well, no, I guess
I can do it with faces. That's about it.
Right. Well, see, I forget people that I see like constantly. I'm like, your name is tell me like 25 times. I'll probably get it eventually. Well, so I guess one of the first questions that I would have for the uninitiated, and I have to admit that I'm not as well initiated. I guess starting with the basics, what is autism?
Boy, it's a long, drawn-out answer, because it can be a lot of things. Long before you kids were born, they would refer to autistics as retarded. That kind of encapsulated those people who had challenges everywhere from autistics to Down syndrome to different things like that. That's kind of what they referred to people as. And as obviously as science has grown and they've begun to study this, it's almost like I said, it's like pornography. I can't tell you what it is, but I know it if I see it.
Right.
And that's basically what autism is. It's just a different way that someone sees the world and how they interact with it. Sage in particular, as I said, she's got some absolute just mind-blowing talents. She is a little artist. She has her own budding little business. But if you were to actually sit down and speak with her, you would find her cognitive development to somewhere to be between like 5 and 7. That's where she is. But she can sit down and have a full-blown conversation with you, as long as you're talking about what she wants to talk about. That's just kind of the way things work. I know some other autistics. I happen to work with a lady whose son is autistic. He's nonverbal. He knows a couple of words, but he doesn't do a lot of speaking. So you don't get a lot of feedback on him. You know what I mean? So it really kind of runs the gambit between somebody who you may meet on the street who just may seem a little bit odd, like that person doesn't look me in the eye, or they don't interact with me as somebody else might, to all the way to the other side of that scale where you're starting to have to look to see what you can do to keep this person safe. So.
Right.
Autism, I guess the best way to describe it is a lifelong challenge.
Sounds about right.
And I mean, like, the way we've come to view it over the years has really undergone a metamorphosis, like from when I was a kid to now. It's completely different, and we see it in a whole new light now than we used to, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, especially when you take a look at maybe over the last decade, where at one point they were using numbers like 160 or so out of every 1,000 was considered to be on the spectrum. And I think that number, as they begin to expand the spectrum, has gotten closer to 90. So you've got every 90 people out of 1,000 people is going to be affected by autism in one way or another.
Well, and that's another question that I would have too. What is the spectrum? We hear on the spectrum. That's become one of the newer buzzwords of the last decade, coming into the roaring 20s. What is the spectrum?
It is basically something science has put together that allows them to test a person to find out some of the challenges they may or may not have. You can have a high functioning autistic, let's say an Asperger's child. Asperger's can affect boys or girls, but does tend to affect boys more. Who's high functioning, can speak and talk. Their cognitive development will continue. It won't stop or slow down, but they'll have a lot of different issues, especially when it comes to social cues and things like that. It allows science to kind of assign them an area of which their development is progressing or has progressed to. It's not always fair, but you always have to start somewhere. I speak with parents all the time who say, well, I don't think my child is, or I don't want my child to be. And I can appreciate that, especially as a parent who does have a special in the house. But there's also reality involved in how do you help them? And there's always somewhere you got to start, and getting them diagnosed or recognized as being on that spectrum, whatever that spectrum may be, is the first thing you really need to do.
And I'm glad that you said that it's not always fair, because my follow-up was going to be, do you, as the parent of a special, do you feel that spectrum sort of pigeonholes your daughter, or is it as accurate as it can be? What are some of the, do you agree with this spectrum, and is it sort of like a necessary evil, or should there be something else, in your opinion?
It's all about how you use it. You can take a look at the spectrum as a negative thing, going, oh my goodness, my child, what are we going to do? Or you can look at it and deal with it the way I and Sage's mom did, which was okay. She's on it. Now we have something that is official. Now how can we use this for Sage's benefit? And that's what we did do. And it took a long time. It's not an easy road. It was quite a battle, quite a fight. A lot of yelling and threatening and different things. But once they are considered to be on the spectrum, as bad as or uncomfortable somebody might find it, it actually does open up doors.
Okay.
So, as you said, is it a necessary evil? I would say at least this early in the study, because realistically, as I said, they've only spent the last couple of decades really looking into it, and maybe the last 10 years of really focusing on it. So you need, as I said, you really do kind of need to start somewhere, and at least right now, that's where that somewhere is, and that spectrum is widening. So you're able to go ahead and not pigeonhole somebody, but maybe get them on a graph or something along those lines and try to work on how we can help them people.
All right, Kendra, you got anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, the thing is, I haven't gotten to see everybody in such a long time, Sage especially. So I kind of get to hear what's going on. I do get to talk to her every now and then. Usually I just remember things from when we were kids, and to me now, knowing what I do know and going through the schooling that I went through as well, so many things were so obvious at the time.
Right.
And I know they used to say, well, you really don't notice until they hit about 5 when they start going to school and they start interacting more socially with others. I don't think that's necessarily the case. There are some that you can tell a lot earlier, and I want to say
Sage happened to be one of those. We kind of started picking up on something with Sage when she was 2, where that's when we really started trying to figure out something was different. Obviously we had Kendra and Kendra's younger sister Jewel, but there was something different about the third one, and you kind of started picking it up. And it's especially it's easier also if you have children already before you have a special. I don't mean that. It just allows you to have certain experiences.
Right.
It allows you to maybe potentially pick up on things that you may not see, as opposed to just somebody having a fussy baby or a challenging child. There's something there where in the world that they see in their eyes, like I said, I've always said I can only imagine looking through Sage's eyes and seeing what she sees and how she sees the world, what the colors look like, what are the sounds like, those sort of things where it's difficult to say. You sit there and some days you're frustrated, but you're looking going, yeah, but I can't hear what she hears and I can't see what she sees and I don't feel what she feels. I mean, I can only imagine being put in that position to be able to look through somebody else's eyes, and honestly I'd probably go, holy fuck, what happened here? So that's part of the thing. As you said, when you have especially when they're younger, and they are actually starting to come up with some tests and different things to try to begin to recognize this stuff earlier. Obviously, we knew Sage was going to have some challenges. She's sitting over there staring at me, and smiling.
Are you getting the death glare?
We battled through them. So, but yeah, just. I would definitely say it's probably a little easier to start to diagnose some of this stuff a little earlier than it was obviously 20 plus years ago when Sage was quite a bit younger.
Right. So I guess now, amazing information. Like I've learned a lot in just the short 20 minutes that we've been talking about this.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. So I guess for you as the father of a special, when you see depictions of people that sort of have, mental health issues or are on the spectrum as special, how does that make you feel? Do you do for instance, anytime I watch a film about jail, and I nitpick what the corrections officers do because I used to be a corrections officer. Do you find yourself sort of nitpicking at the depictions from an entertainment perspective, or does it like upset you? Does it frustrate you? How do you feel when you see someone depicting an autistic individual in, say, film?
There are so few, really, if you kind of think about it. I was thinking about it before we got on, because obviously of what the topic was going to be, and at what point or when would I, now being 50 and having this young child here with me, would have recognized something like that on film for what it was. And I think back to a movie called What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
I remember that film is one of my favorites.
So if you go back far enough, and you had the DiCaprio character there, looking back on it now, you look at it and go, wow, that kid would probably be considered a high functioning on the spectrum. But that's not words you use when you're not in that world. You look at it and you'll use the words like special or this. You may not even use the word autism.
Right.
You know? I think there's a new movie that just got released recently. I can't remember what it's called. It's got Shia LaBeouf, or however it is you say his name. He just released a movie here who had a young man who was not autistic, but I believe he had Down syndrome. And I know a lot of Down syndrome's kids because in the programs that I volunteer for and that I coach for, it's not just autistic children or adults actually, but it's that whole gambit of people who would have a serious challenge if they were in the world by themselves. It includes Downs and things like that. But I can only think of maybe a couple of 2-3 movies where they actually ever had somebody, and they never focus on that. They never focus on the challenge of that person. They just tend to be in the background and part of the scheme or the plot of the movie.
Right.
You don't see a lot of them where they're going to sit and focus on that, because let's be honest, that's not entertainment. That's something completely different.
Or they tend to over dramatize it for entertainment value.
Or sometimes not. Honestly, that like I said, DiCaprio's character. I mean, I know a lot of specials who are just like that.
Right.
Well,
do you feel that was at least an accurate depiction from your experience?
Job for a mainstreamer trying to go ahead and act as a special. Because like I said, it's, as you said, it's a little easier for you as a former correctional officer to look at a movie and see what a correctional officer is doing and going, no way I would do that, I'd get killed. But how do you, there are no former autistics.
Right.
They're all autistic. So I thought he did a really good job with it way back when, really, before it was even mainstreamed.
Right.
And you saw actually the challenges between his character and the brother character played by
Johnny Depp
and whatnot. That was actually pretty close to what a household can be like, other than having that problem with the mother.
Right.
But, that really is kind of what it is.
Right. Well, what about another film that sort of jumps to mind for me would be Forrest Gump. Now, was that a relatively accurate depiction of someone else on the spectrum, or was that just overly?
That was dramatization.
Definitely dramatization. And the thing is, they never actually come out and say exactly what the issue is.
Right.
But if I would have to look at it now, I would say, well, yeah, he has Asperger's syndrome. He's high functioning. He can read, he can write, he can move, but Tom Hanks did a real great job. If you ever notice his character never looks anybody in the eyes.
I did notice that, yeah.
Because
anytime he takes pictures, he kind of closes his eyes. Or in the bench scene when he's sitting there and he's talking to the people, he'll look down or he'll look at them and he'll look up. I thought he did an excellent job in projecting, some of the little nuances of an autistic special. Thought he did a really good job with it. But the rest of that stuff, honestly, there's no way I'm going to let my daughter go run around the country by herself. Right.
What's going to happen?
Not happening.
First, I don't. And Sage doesn't run either, do you, Sage? There you go. So.
Yeah, I only run for two things: dogs and the dinner bell. That's about it.
And honestly, if you
something's
see
chasing
me
you.
running, it's because whatever's chasing me wasn't going to stop with the first shot. So
There
That's
you
right.
go. Yep. Well, if there's no food nearby or there's no dogs nearby and I'm running, that means the zombie apocalypse has started.
the apocalypse has occurred. Exactly.
So, did you read the book Forrest Gump?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. I read. I never bought the book. I heard that the movie was sort of close to the book.
It
But
was a little bit like in the book, he's a lot more, I guess, aggressive, a little darker, a little bit more aggressive, I want to say. He's nowhere near as he's not as lovable as Tom Hanks's depiction.
Well, honestly, if you're gonna make a movie about a special monster, probably not gonna do all that great. Those are horror films. I don't watch them. I leave that to Kendra and her mom.
Well, that was gonna be another question I was gonna ask then. Do people that are special, what sort of roles, if you're watching a film or a television show, where do you usually see the specials? Do they put them in as villains primarily?
As I said, whenever I've ever noticed it, they've always seemed to be either that background character or the lovable come save me character, or at the end of the 30 minutes, the special pulled the show out of their hat character. What was that? There was a show in the 80s had a character named Corky. I don't remember what the show was called.
I know which one you're talking about. It skips. Let me jump on my Google machine real quick.
Sure. He was a down, and like I said, you can talk about, like I said, autistics, but really it's a whole cognitive development challenge that these people have. Whether it's an extra chromosome or it's a wrong amino acid released at the wrong time. It changes. It literally changes the mapping of the brain.
Right. Life goes on. Life goes on.
Life goes on. Light goes off. Maybe it's a dim light. You just don't know.
Yeah.
And and again, I've met. I've got people like Sage who are absolutely awesome, and she's got this just wicked calendar in her head, and she's an artist, and she dresses like Cyndi Lauper and loves it, and won't let anybody.
She does.
That's my kind of kid right there.
Yeah, and yet I've met some savants, absolutely. These people who have just amazing talents, but couldn't hold a conversation.
Right.
And Sage absorbs information like nobody's business. Like if she's interested in it, that's it. I mean, she's all about it.
You're gonna see a picture about it, I guarantee it. She's gonna go find something to come show you, right, Sage?
I'm gonna have to send her one of my books so she can start going nuts on those. But the show Corky from Life Goes On. That was a show that I had interest in as a kid, but I couldn't understand it, so I didn't watch it because you figure that came out when I was like 10.
We have out here, obviously California being a very progressive state, and we are a progressive state. We're full of a bunch of crazy Democrats, but we are a progressive state, and they want to take our money. But I have to say there are a few things that we do well out here. And that is take care of the specials. We really do. We want to try to help everybody. It's kind of just seems to be the way this side of the country works. Now, I'm not saying anything about South Carolina or anything else. I'm just saying we spend a lot of money on it.
Well, feel free, because South Carolina barely spends jack.
Yeah, you got that. I mean,
I'm not even going to get started on my views of South Carolina and some of the politics. That would just be impolite.
My grandson, Kendra's nephew, is probably on this spectrum. Christopher, who's had just a plethora of challenges, and the crazy former Secretary of State, I think it is, said it takes a village to raise a child, and that's especially true when they have the challenges that somebody else doesn't have. Now, out here, like I said, in California, there's different things that we have out here. Sage is a member of many programs. Don't get me wrong, it's not easy. It's getting a little easier, but it was not easy to get her in. There were a lot of fights and arguments. We kept her out of school for a year, battling LAUSD. LAUSD is the second largest school district in the country, and the superintendent of LAUSD, not the district, the entire superintendent of the entire LAUSD knew who I was.
Wow.
Because I would call and I would yell and I would go to meetings and I would drag them in and I would do this and I would do that. And it's a battle, but that's the thing is once you get to a certain point, you actually, as bad as it sounds, you can win by attrition. They'll eventually give up and decide you're just not worth the time anymore here.
It's cheaper to be an ally than it is to be.
Pay me off and make me go away is sometimes it's better off. There's actually a program out here though. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I want to say it's called Born This Way. So somebody wants to go ahead and Google Born This Way. It is actually a program set here, and actually several of the people who star in this show are actually friends of Sage's. They're actually from a local program here in Los Angeles. And it's all about this group of people who are born with challenges. And it kind of follows them in their daily lives. I think that's a little bit more of a realistic view of how things go. As I said, there aren't good days. You have levels of bad. And what you try to do is keep the level as low as you can for as long as you can. You address the escalation, you get it back down, and then you just keep plugging along. Like, you're constantly going to be walking uphill. As long as you know that, it makes it easier. Doesn't make it easy, it makes it easier. I know I'm going to have to do something. I may not like it, but at least nobody can say I wasn't warned.
Right.
And that's kind of what it's like being the parent of a special.
So let me ask you this: if some, well, I don't want to say if someone, but do you think that? And I'm asking you to speak for your daughter, and I apologize for that, but just speaking for some, for the parent of a special, do you think that it would have helped with her development as a kid if she maybe saw someone in fiction, like in television or in movies, that sort of had similar special qualities as she did, to help her sort of, I guess, I don't want to say develop, but to sort of make her road a little bit easier? Or would it not have mattered? Because you realize, I'm sure you've seen it.
I don't think it would
so much
development, but being able to maybe watch a particular show or something along the lines and discuss with Sage, hey, you know what, that person has a lot of the same challenges you have. It's all about how they're going to go ahead and put something like that together and how they're going to use that particular tool in their show or movie.
Right.
And if you're going to make it, as I said, just a background or a piece of furniture, pull it out, once or twice every 26 shows, or how many ever shows that they do these days, just to remind everybody that they're still there, then it is what it is.
Right.
But like I said, but I'm also, I'm also very much of a realist in what I say is that when it comes to entertainment, that's not fun.
Right.
There's nothing fun about this. You have, like I said, you can have fun within what you're doing. You can enjoy things, but there's nothing fun about this. There's no necessarily enjoyment. You sit there and people have said, well, I wouldn't change my child for anything. I'd change it in a hot second, without question, because I see just the battles and the challenges and the things like that. So like I said, as I said, having a TV, like I said, if you were to have a movie, and as I said, which they just recently did, excuse me, on something similar, as I said, the Shia LaBeouf movie, and they just did that one when they talked about that special kid, or something along those lines. But I don't know how you make autism funny without really offending some people. You know what I mean? How do you
Right.
make it? How do you make it funny? How do you make it enjoyable? Because it's
Right.
not.
Right. And I mean, the only reason why I ask is because where we live in the world now where, people want to have inclusion. People want to see people that they can relate to on
Sure.
screen. So, that's the reason why I asked because, obviously I've never been in the my whole thing was I wanted to see other black people in films as a kid.
Sure.
You know, and seeing certain, individuals, seeing, the characters played by Morgan Freeman or Denzel Washington made me feel like I can do that too. So
Sure.
I was, so I mean, I always wondered, that's why I asked that question. Or would someone say, like Greta Thunberg, who we mentioned earlier, is she someone that could probably help? Maybe not necessarily Sage herself, but maybe some of the young people that you might volunteer with. Would she be someone that could maybe be an inspiration to someone who's maybe who probably doesn't have the support of like yourself and your wife? Do you think that having someone like her in the public eye, or if they could do someone on the spectrum with respect and with justice to make it accurate and respectful to the story, do you think that would help? Or because they have, individuals that are special have their own battles to fight, it doesn't matter?
I can tell you right now, it probably doesn't matter. And the reason I say that is because, somebody like Sage doesn't watch movies.
Okay.
She doesn't go to the movies. She doesn't watch television. So I can only speak from my experience and my personal perspective here.
Okay.
It's silly, but you know who it might help? It might help that parent or that brother or sister, that grandparent, that aunt, that uncle, that friend who just doesn't get it. Because we still have people in our lives today, with Sage being 24 years old, who still don't get it.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it's something very difficult to. It's easier if you're there every day, because it becomes part of your regular routine and you understand the nuances of the relationships and different things like that. But if you only see somebody or deal with somebody within a particular period of time, every couple of weeks or every couple of months or every couple of years, you kind of forget. You forget, especially when you got somebody like Sage who's up and walking and talking and doing things like that. And then you start realizing, wow, she's talking a lot, or she's saying the same thing over and over and over again. And how do you deal with that sort of thing? Repetitiveness is one of the regular, I don't want to call it a side effect, if you want to call it that, of having these challenges Sage has. Which is kind of, it is what it is. We don't worry about it too much here. Sometimes you'll sit and say, okay, that's enough. You got to put the brakes on it because you can't just let it roll.
Right.
We still have people here who still don't always get it, or they forget. Or you'll have those people who will treat her like she's a non-person, and they'll baby her or speak to her in a way that it's like, oh, easy now, Scooter. She's well past that.
Yeah. It's like, don't get yourself put through a wall now.
Now, and again, I stand 6 feet 220. I can handle myself.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm more afraid of my wife. They should be more afraid of my wife than they are of me. I tell you that.
I was gonna say,
I'm more scared of mom.
Yeah, I'm about to say, who ain't nobody worried about you? They worry about the mama bear. Come on now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All you can do is stand there and give a glare and pound your chest. She ain't even gonna give him a chance to see any displays of power.
And then I have to get rid of the body. It's awesome.
Hope you know some hog farmers out there.
Yeah, that's the thing though. It's how do you and let's go, if we go back to the spectrum, and we can even talk about African Americans, and you have what's the spectrum of an African American? And if you go on, you're talking about a Denzel or Morgan Freeman or something along those lines, and then you fly all the way back to maybe an Amos and Andy, who you guys are probably way too young to remember those guys.
I remember Amos and
Andy, and or those different sort of things. That's your spectrum. How do you go ahead and, if you're on that spectrum, how do you go ahead and make something viewable or relatable to every black person? It's almost impossible to do.
Right, and I was actually going to say that's impossible.
You need to show the reality in it and the positive prospects of it, because we already know what the negatives are. We already know what the negatives are. What can we do to show the positive prospects of people? Whether they're black, white, autistic.
Right.
Well, I think one of the issues is that, how autism used to be portrayed. It used to always be the quiet kid sitting in the corner, rocking back and forth, kind of nonverbal, maybe just makes an odd noise every now and then. It's usually that's how it used to be depicted. But
that's how somebody would perceive it. Let's say my mother's age. My mother's coming up here on 70. And of course that's, as I said, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when my mother was coming up, that was the kid just needs more discipline. Hey, why do you have to act like that? Why do you have to do that? Well, I mean, and again, I'm certain there are probably some children who are just general pains in the ass. I was one of them.
Well, I know I was.
But realistically, as I said, that's when you asked me if the spectrum is a good thing or bad thing. It just is a thing. It's not good or it's just a thing, and everything's about how you use it. Now, as they've begun to do, these kids who are having difficulty in school, why are they having difficulty in school? What's the learning disorder that they have, or disability or challenge that they have? Is it have something to do with autism or something else? If nothing else, as the perspective has grown, it's shining a light on not just that kid, as Kendra said, rocking in the corner, mumbling to himself. Now you're going to take a look and say, well, yeah, this kid may have a little bit of something. I mean, I won't lie to you. The person who probably saved us more than anybody else, when I look at the thing, and we've had a lot of assistance, we've had a lot of help, was actually the school nurse for the local elementary school. Because I live in Los Angeles County, and Los Angeles County in the schools can be a little bit of a rough place. And so we were going ahead and we were prepping for Sage. Okay, what's going to be the next step after what we call elementary school, moving into junior high school or middle school, whatever they call it. And we were there, and I was just pounding my hand on the desk. We had to spend a lot of money to get an advocate to come with us to battle this out. And pounding, and they were telling us, no, she'll be fine. We'll do this. We'll do that. She'll be great. And I was going, there's no way. You guys are insane. And then suddenly the school nurse goes, how old is this girl? And we said, well, she's 12. She'll be going to middle school. And the nurse stopped. This nurse worked for LAUSD. Stops the meeting and goes, oh, hell no, this little girl getting chewed up. Boom, we're done. Sometimes it takes like that one person. And that's the one person that actually helped us the most. Is as soon as that happened, we had somebody within LAUSD who recognized, and they're only going to do, and this is every school district, and I understand why. I don't necessarily have to agree with it, but I understand why. Education is money. How much does it cost to teach a child to be a valued member of society, to keep them out of prison? But the perspective changes a little bit when you have a challenge like Sage or a bunch of the other kids, like I said, or the other 90 out of 1,000 who are now entering the population flow. You just sometimes need that battle of that one person, and that's a one person actually kind of was able to kind of get us moving on a path. We were able to get Sage into a special school, which was great. Of course, that's a whole nother podcast after that. And sometimes it just takes that one person. Sometimes it might just take that one person within the media or the entertainment industry to go, what if we try this? So as I said, there was that one show. I think it might even be a Netflix show. I could be wrong. Like I said, Born This Way. But it actually is a really great show. And as I said, it's one of the few shows or few things I've actually seen that actually depicts the people with challenges in more realistic light, while at the same time showing what they could potentially do.
All right, that's a lot of very, very valuable information. I mean, like, wow. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time. So I guess one of the things that I would probably ask as we get ready to sort of wrap everything up is, now we already said that there's hardly any real accurate representation except for maybe the one with Leonardo DiCaprio's character Arnie in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Right. Do you think that when a special is portrayed, do you think that it's done fairly, or are there things that could and should be done differently to sort of help with the awareness?
Again, this is where it comes back to me being a realist in what I do.
Right.
I understand what it is entertainment.
Right.
And if it's not going to affect the entertainment value of whatever's being done, they being directors, producers, whoever the case may be, won't do it.
Right.
Okay, so, and you have to take a look at that. And it's really, do you want to go ahead and is that what the mainstream person is going to want to see on a Wednesday night? And the honest answer is probably not. As fair or unfair as it is, I understand it. You're a young guy, but you probably remember the miniseries Roots, I'm assuming.
Right? Actually, I just finished the audiobook.
See, and I watched Roots. I read part of the book. I didn't read the whole thing. It was a little bit much for me. But it was obviously the movie in itself, or the miniseries, was a really severe perspective on slavery and whatnot happened. Right. And I watched it. And I sat through the whole thing, and you felt bad, you felt good, whatever the case may be. But then you go back, is that something you'd want to see every Wednesday night? And the answer probably is no.
No, that's a little bit too much. That's a little too heavy on the because I still remember how I was feeling just listening to Avery Brooks was the narrated on it, and I just still remember the feelings that I felt listening to the book and how the characters are categorized. And it's like, yeah, I don't think I could do that all the time.
No, and I don't necessarily know that in realistically that sort of thing, what would being a special, whether it's autistic or anything else that may be a challenge, is something that the mainstream public would probably want to see every day. Good, bad, or indifferent. I think that's the reality of things. When you go to TV, you go to movies, you go whatever the case may be, you're actually most of the time trying to escape for a couple hours. Your regular day, work, whatever the case may be. Now, you want to go off, you can go off and watch Jaws, but you know for a fact that you jump in your swimming pool, you're not going to get eaten by a shark. But when you watch something like that where somebody's got some challenges or something like that, that could easily be your brother, your daughter, your nephew.
Right.
Don't necessarily know that that's something you would want to see every day, and I don't know how many feel-good endings you could realistically pull out of that particular situation.
Right.
So you look at it and go, when you're talking entertainment, if it's not entertaining, it's not going to get on, so it's a waste of time.
Right.
Documentaries, again, special shows, like I said, like Born This Way, or movies, like you said, Forrest Gump, or What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Those are moments in time where somebody could potentially find that small amount of enjoyment or understanding. But they're not going to want to do it every day.
Right. Yeah, Born This Way is an A&E series.
There
I just happened to find it. Yep, you can find that on Hulu or on A&E on demand.
It's a great show.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. They only have season 3 on Hulu, but yeah, I'll check it out from your recommendation.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that too.
Well, all right, Papa Frank, Kendra mentioned you being a writer. Where can our listeners find you? How can we find you? How can we stalk you legally on? How can we stalk you legally over this newfangled internet thing we've got?
Yeah, Kendra was supposed to talk me up. I did write a little tiny book. It's called Advice from Dad. I'm an old guy. I know stuff.
You're
It's
10
the
years
basics.
older than me. You're not old. You're 10 years older than me.
I'm not an old guy. I'm the old guy. It's
Yeah,
important.
he's the old guy. He's not allowed to be just an old guy.
Oh,
and you can find that on Amazon if you search out my name, Frank Nieto. I wrote it. I was really fortunate enough to have my Kendra's younger brother who illustrated the book for me. And it's just all about, when you're, it's mostly, I won't lie, I wrote it towards boys. But I always, somebody asks me, is the book any good? And, I answer the question. It's not the Bible, but they read the book and they screw up on some of the advice. They might end up meeting Jesus really soon. And I've also told the girls, if you read this book and the guy you're talking to isn't meeting all of these little chapters, send him, because he's not going to end up where you want to end up.
There you go.
I got lucky then, because mine does.
Yeah, I also made him read the book.
He did read the book.
I'm actually scared. I'm scared for Sharon to read the book, because she was like, you're lacking here, and here.
Start packing bags now.
Yeah, because I'm too old to change. Nah, you can still teach a middling dog new tricks.
There it is. Absolutely. As soon as you stop learning, you're dead.
That's accurate.
Very.
All right. Well, I guess we're gonna put a pin on this for now. Frank, thanks again so much for taking the time to talk with us, give us some insight, and I know you've given me a plethora of amazing information, and I just hope that people that are listening are, be able to take as much from it as I did, because I'm telling you taught me a lot in this just under an hour.
Oh, good. Well, you guys have a good night.
All right, you as well. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Kendra, that was a great call by you.
I know.
Look at you.
Well, when it comes to something I am very intimately aware of, it's very easy to find the people that you jive with and, your tribe, and Dad just happens to be one of the closest. He is a wealth of knowledge, and I've always said that. And he's just amazing. Like so we're sitting here recording, and my mom texts me and says, basically, definitely got the right guy. So anybody that wants to know anything about autism, or anybody on the spectrum, or anybody within that realm, as he states, people with challenges, then he's definitely the guy to talk to. He takes part in all of these groups, volunteers. My little sister was in the Special Olympics, and he helped with that. And I mean, he's just amazing. And I don't think I could have thought of anybody better, except for my mother, to come on. But no, he was a very good choice as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think, aside from my mom, I don't think I would have really myself chosen anybody else.
Well, like I said, that was definitely a great call by you, because your old man got some knowledge. He came in dropping some knowledge bombs.
He does. He drops knowledge bombs all the time. And when he's not dropping knowledge bombs, he is a big smartass. So he's good there too. Yeah, he's multi-talented.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of that. Too bad he lives in California. I tell you to bring him with you in April.
Oh yeah, he would be fun. I was telling Mom that it would be interesting having you and him.
Oh, just shooting the breeze and just going back and forth.
And then add my wonderful husband in there. It'd probably be even better.
Oh Lord, I'd never get off this thing. I would never. You and I will be going into work tomorrow looking half past dead.
Oh my God, I probably might look like that anyway.
Oh, I'm gonna look like that. Well, you're gonna be a cuter dead person than me.
I just hide it in my cubicle, that's all.
Well, see, I'm not gonna be able to just hide in my office tomorrow. I've got some specialized thing I have to do tomorrow. So yeah, so that's gonna blow and suck all at the same time. But anywho, I think this was an amazing return to the show after having the holidays off, I think.
Yes, it was definitely a good choice on our end. A big, I don't want to say explosion, but basically a big explosion into the new year. We're
Absolutely.
coming back from a little hiatus, and we're definitely feeling better than we have been.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And yeah, this was a really good way to bring in the new year on the show, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 150%. So I guess we're gonna put a pin in this for now. Next week I'm thinking, I don't know, I guess we're gonna have to decide what we're gonna do next week.
Yeah. After
But
this, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a hard act to follow, but I think we can do it.
oh yeah, we'll come up with some. I know I actually. Well, what have you been doing writing wise, Kendra? What have you been doing?
So I've been trying to write. I know getting my master's degree kind of burned me out a little bit, and I haven't been able to write nearly as much as I would like. But I did start on the rewrite of my Executioner trilogy. I'm not as far into that as I would like, but unfortunately, some things just get in the way, like whether it's me being sick or, migraine or, plethora of things. It's great. That was sarcasm.
Oh yeah. I felt it. I was picking up what you were putting. I picked up what you put down.
I'm so glad. And then I'm working on a psychological supernatural thriller called The Hollow. I'm a little bit farther into that than I am the Executioner trilogy rewrite. I'm not exactly sure why I'm into that one more than the other, but
that's the way it is right now.
That's the way it is right now. Yeah, exactly. And what are you doing? What are you working on?
Well, I've been working on. I actually came up with a title for my previously untitled romantic comedy that I've been trying to get done. Let me pull it up just so I can remember what it is. Damn it, I have so much stuff. It's titled Yeah, I Married a Badass.
Oh yeah, you did tell me about that title. When was that?
I did?
Yes.
Nice. Yeah.
But now our listeners know.
Now everyone knows. Yeah. So the rom-com is now titled Yeah, I Married a Badass. And but actually today, as I was going through that, I got a little itch, so I started going through John Baker 3, but I'm more editing through and like seeing things like, why would I write it like that? That looks so terrible.
Oh, but it's so good.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I've been, and I'm basically gonna try to work on those two. I had to put a little pin in the concussion for now, just because that's just with the wedding coming up and blah blah blah. That's just way too much emotion. That's way too much dark emotion that I just can't handle right now. So I'll save that for the summer.
Yeah, why not?
Let's just make the summer dark and dreary like my soul. Really,
right.
But yeah, that's where I'm at right now, and we're getting ready for the re-release of Invincible Heart over at Random Evolved Media.
Yay!
The Random Evolved Media website has just gone live. The store will be available, so pre-orders for Invincible Heart will be available soon. Just go to randomevolvedmedia.com for that. You'll see it also in our Facebook posts, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I believe the ordered copies you can get signed. Am I correct?
Yeah, the print copies that you purchase from the Random Evolved Media store. Now, that doesn't mean you go to Amazon. You go to Amazon and you buy the print copy of Invincible Heart, you're going to get a groovy book. But if you buy it from the Random Evolved Media store on randomevolvedmedia.com, you get a signed copy signed by Kendra and myself.
Ta-da.
Yep. And the ebook version of Invincible Heart will be available this month, January 28th. And the print version will be available February 18th. So mark your calendars, folks.
Yay! So excited.
Oh, as am I. Believe me, as am I. It's going to be awesome to get
Waiting.
John Baker back in the world again.
Yes. Because
So,
Mila's still hanging out there all by herself, so she needs her friend back.
yep, he's on his way, and it's going to be awesome. And hopefully within the next few months, maybe I'll be able to break some news on the audio front, but we
hopefully.
shall see.
Yeah.
We shall see on that. But otherwise, that's about all I got going on. And you can catch us here on Writers Uncensored. I believe it's either Fridays or Saturdays. It depends. I guess it's whenever I get Richard the audio files. But you can catch us here at TBK Magazine. And, hopefully soon you'll be able to find us wherever, podcasts are listed. But right now you can get us on TBK Magazine. And anything else you want to throw out there, Kendra, before we go home?
No, I think that was it.
All right. Well, hey, guys, remember, you can also find us on Facebook. Just go to your little search bar there in your Facebook machine and just go to Writers Uncensored. Or if you want to find us on Twitter, and I'm actually trying to pull it up right now, and you can follow us on Twitter on Writers Uncensored. It's at WU Don't Be a Douche. Writers Uncensored, don't be a douche.
It's my favorite.
Oh, I love it. And you'll know you found us because it's a purple door. There's like a black door with purple. It looks really groovy.
It does. That's why I picked it.
And I know, and I love it very much. All right, guys. So with that being said, we are going to probably go to bed, and I'm going to look hideous tomorrow, and Kendra's going to look presentable.
Yeah, maybe presentable, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Well, folks, as we dry out Kendra's assessment and fertilize the lawn, we're going to bid you good night, and we'll see you next week.